Hello. In this video, I read out the Japanese folktales in English. I would be happy if you could press the channel subscription and thumbs up now. Let's begin. Once upon a time, in a certain place, there lived an old man and an old woman. Every day, the grandfather would go to the mountains, and the grandmother would go to the river to do her laundry. One day, as the grandmother was busily doing her laundry by the river, a large peach flowed down from the river with a sound like Donbra Koko, Suko Kko. Donbra Koko, Suko Kko. Oh my, what a beautiful peach. Let's take it home as a souvenir for my grandfather. As the grandmother said this, she bent down to pick up the peach, but it was too late for her hand to reach it. The old woman then sang, "That river over there is cold. This river over here is sweet. Come out of the way, cold rivers. Come over, sweet rivers." And clapped her hands. Then the peach again sang, "Donbra Koko, Suko Kko. Donbra Koko, Suko Kko," and came floating in front of the old woman. The old woman smiled and said, "Hurry up and share it with your grandfather." She picked up the peach, put it in the tub along with the laundry, and then trudged home. In the evening, the old man finally returned from the mountain, carrying the bamboo. "Grandma, she's just come back." "Oh, grandfather, please come back. I've been waiting for you. Come on up. I'll give you something nice." "That's very kind of you. What is that nice thing?" Saying this, the grandfather took off his straw sandals and went upstairs. Meanwhile, the grandmother came back from the shelf, holding the peach from before with a heavy heart, and said, Look at this peach. Oh my, what a peach. Where did you get this beautiful peach from?" "No, I didn't get it here. I found it in the river today." "What? You found it in the river? That's quite unusual." Thus said the old man, holding the peach in his hands, gazing at it intently, when suddenly, the peach split in two from the inside, and a cute baby jumped out cheerfully, crying, "Ah, ah." Oh my. Both the old man and the old woman were shocked, and they both shouted together, "Oh my, we had been saying, we wanted a child, so I'm sure God must have given us this child." The old man and the old woman said this with joy. So the old man hurriedly boiled rice, the old woman prepared soup, and they made a big fuss, and picked up the baby, and had him drink the baby's water. Then suddenly, the baby pushed away the old woman's hand, saying, "Yes, my, what a lively baby." The old man and the old woman looked at each other and laughed, "Aha, aha." And because the baby was born from inside a thigh, they gave the baby the nickname Momotaro. His grandfather and grandmother raised Momotaro with great care. As he grew, he became much bigger than an average child, and incredibly strong, so much so that no one in the whole village could match him in sumo. But he was very kind, and often encouraged his grandfather and grandmother. Momotaro turned 15. Now, there was no one in all of Japan as strong as Momotaro. Momotaro wanted to go abroad somewhere, and try his hand at strength training. At that time, a man came back from traveling around the islands of various countries, and after telling many strange and wonderful stories, he said, after rowing for many years, he came to a place called Onigashima, at the end of a very faraway sea. There were evil ogres living in a formidable iron castle, protecting the precious things they had stolen from various lands. When Momotaro heard this story, he wanted to go to Onigashima and couldn't stay any longer. So he went home and immediately went to his grandfather and said, "Please, give me a little time. The grandfather was surprised and asked, "Where are you going?" "I think I'll go to Oni Island for the Ona's death," Momotaro replied. "Oh, that's a brave thing to do. Go ahead," the grandfather said. "You must be hungry going to such a festival." "All right, I'll make you some lunch," the grandmother said. So the grandfather and grandmother brought out a big mortar and pestle into the middle of the garden, and while the grandfather took out the pestle, the grandmother kneaded the pestle and pounded it, saying, "Pentara coco, pentara coco, pentara coco," and began pounding millet dumplings for the lunch. When the millet dumplings were finished, Momotaro's preparations were complete. Momotaro put on a samurai-style kimono, put a shoulder strap on his shoulder, and hung the bag of millet dumplings from it. He then took a gunsan with a picture of a peach on it in his hand, and said, "Okay, Dad, Mom, I'm off." He bowed his head carefully. "Well, you'd better defeat the demon well," said the grandfather. "Be careful, and don't get hurt," said the grandmother. "Don't worry, we've got the best millet dumplings in Japan." Momotaro went in, and then left. "Okay, goodbye," he said cheerfully. The old man and woman stood outside, watching the deceased for a long, long time. Momotaro walked on until he reached the top of a large mountain. Then, from the grass, a dog came running, calling, "Woof, woof." When Momotaro turned around, the dog bowed politely, and asked, "Momotaro, where are you going?" "I'm going to the ogre's island, to be executed." "What's that on your shoulder?" "The best millet dumplings in Japan. Give me one, and I'll accompany you." "Okay, okay, I'll give it to you, so follow me." The dog took one millet dumpling, and followed behind Momotaro. After descending the mountain and going for a while, he entered the forest. Suddenly, from the top of a tree, a monkey came running down, crying, "Caw, caw." When Momotaro turned around, the monkey bowed politely, and asked, "Momotaro-san, where are you going?" "I'm going to the Ogre Island to be executed." "What's that on your shoulder?" "The best millet dumplings in Japan. Please give me one, and I'll accompany you." "Okay, okay, I'll give it to you. So follow me." The monkey took a millet dumpling and followed behind. He descended the mountain, through the forest, and this time came out into a wide field. Then, in the sky, a faint cry of "Ken, Ken" was heard, and a pheasant came flying towards him. When Momotaro turned around, the pheasant bowed politely, and asked, "Momotaro-san, Momotaro-san, where are you going?" "I'm going to Ogre Island to be buried." "What is that on your shoulder?" "The best millet dumplings in Japan. Please give me one, and I'll accompany you." "Okay, okay, I'll give it to you. Follow me." The pheasant also received a millet dumpling, and followed behind Momotaro. With the dog, monkey, and pheasant, Momotaro now had 3 good servants, and he was more and more excited as he continued on. Eventually coming to a wide seaside area. There, a boat was tied up just right. Momotaro and his 3 servants immediately climbed into the boat. "I'll be the rower." Saying this, the dog started to row the boat. "I'll be the helmsman." Saying this, the monkey sat at the helm. "I'll be the helmsman." Saying this, the pheasant stood at the head of the boat. The weather was clear and sunny, and not a single wave rose above the clear, clear sea. The boat sped off at a dizzying speed, like a thunderbolt or a boat. After what seemed like just an hour, a pheasant, standing at the bow and looking ahead, cried out, "Oh, oh, an island!" and flapped its wings loudly as it leapt into the sky, cutting straight through the wind and flying away. Momotaro followed the pheasant and looked ahead, and sure enough, At the far end of the ocean, he could see something vaguely like a cloud. As the boat continued, what had looked like a cloud gradually took on a clearer shape and appeared. Ah, I can see it, I can see it, I can see the ogre's island. Momotaro said this, and the dog and the monkey all cried out in unison, hurrah, hurrah. The ogre's island drew closer and closer, and they could see the ogre's castle folded up in a hard rock. They could also see the ogre's warrior standing guard in front of an imposing iron statue. A pheasant was perched on the highest roof of the castle, looking in their direction. They had to row to the ogre's island for years and years, and they had only just closed their eyes when they reached it. Momotaro, accompanied by the dog and the monkey, leapt swiftly from the boat onto the hill. The ogre's guard, who was on guard, was shocked at the sight of the unfamiliar figure, and ran into the roof in a panic, tying the iron roof tightly. Just then the dog stood in front of the roof and banged on the door, shouting, "Momotaro of Japan has come to take you to heaven. Open up, open up." When the ogre heard the sound, he trembled and tried his best to hold it down from inside. Then a fox jumped down from the roof and pecked the eyes of the ogres who were holding the roof, so the ogre ran away in a panic. Meanwhile, a monkey slithered up the high wall and took the ugly roof from inside. The day dawned. With a cry of, "Whoa!" Momotaro's men charged valiantly into the castle, and the ogre leader, accompanied by many of his followers, came up, each one brandishing their thick iron poles, crying, "Yo, you!" towards them. However, the ogres, who were only big but weak, had been pecked in the eyes many times by a pheasant, and now had been bitten in the shins by a dog, running away screaming, "Ouch, ouch!" and had been scratched in the face by a monkey, crying and crying, threw away their iron poles and everything else, and died. The ogre leader, who had endured and fought until the end, was finally defeated by Momotaro. Momotaro got on top of the big ogre, and said, "How about this? Will you still be able to fight?" And he squeezed him down tight. The ogre's leader was so painfully tied around the neck by Momotaro's strength that he could no longer bear it, and with tears streaming down his face, he said, "I will fight, I will fight. Please save my life. In return, I will give you all my treasures." And thus he was forgiven. As promised, the ogre's leader left the castle, and went to the hideout, and the treasures in the house, as well as the corals, the sea lions, and the most precious things in the world, loaded into a mountain of a carriage and carried them out. Momotaro took many treasures with him, and got back on the boat with his 3 servants. The boat went even faster on the way back than on the way there, and soon they arrived in Japan. When the boat reached the shore, the dog stood in front and pulled out the bear loaded with treasures. The pheasant pulled the leash, and the monkey pushed behind. "Go, go, go!" The 3 men ran forward, running anxiously. At home, the old man and old woman took turns saying, "It looks like Momotaro will be back soon," and waited with their heads slumped. Then Momotaro returned with his 3 noble servants, looking very handsome, and the old man and woman were so happy that they could not even look at each other. Good job, you're the best in Japan," said the old man. "Oh, well, the best thing is that you weren't hurt," said the old woman. At that moment, Momotaro turned to the dog, monkey, and pheasant, and said, "Well, the tiger's death was fun." The dog barked happily, and stood on his front legs. The monkey laughed, and barked, and showed his white fur. The pheasant spun around, crying, and doing a round and round turn. The sky was blue and swollen, and cherry blossoms were blooming in all directions in the garden. That's that.